It's not just me that doesn't get this right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining again. I appreciate it. Tonight, again, I'm going to talk about an announcement. Again, about an announcement, I'll get this straight eventually, that I made this week and answer some questions that I've been asked by the community recently about that. And I want to thank you for taking the time to contact me with hundreds of questions. My volunteer team and I do our very best to answer as many as we can and to return calls whenever possible. I'll also take questions in the comments at the end of answering. Sorry, and I'm going to try and scroll here, but it's not working. And if you have any questions that don't get answered, please just visit my website, sandraformayor.ca. Join me on Twitter or Facebook and Instagram. I was told today I should do an Instagram live, so not that I completely understand what that is, but we'll make something happen perhaps on the weekend. You can check out my YouTube channel or email me at sandraformayor@gmail.com. So just a bit of housekeeping. I do ask that you please be respectful in the comments. Again, I have 4 children, so one of them is usually tuning in, and if you wouldn't say it in front of your kids, please don't say it in front of mine. And okay, getting right to it. The week that I had has been pretty fantastic. I actually have been out door knocking and surprising people, quietly enjoying their home life during COVID. But have had some excellent conversations at doorways. People are, you know what, the citizens of Regina are just so fantastic. They're really great. They're polite and engaging and kind, and I appreciate that. So thanks to all of you. If you see me at your door, I appreciate your openness to having a discussion with me, talking about what you love about Regina and what you hope gets fixed. And I've continued having meetings with groups of people and both business leaders and community organizations. I had a chance to get out to the North Central Family Center and visit with Sandy Wankel, and the work that they do there is just phenomenal. I don't think anybody can spend any amount of time with Sandy and not come away feeling like, that you need to be a better human being, but that there's human beings like her that exist in this world. It gives me hope. I think it gives everybody hope. Again, I've had the opportunity to speak with, I continue my outreach into Indigenous circles, and I continue to be at once humbled and awed by both their history, their experience, but their depth of knowledge and understanding and willingness to share. It's been pretty fantastic. And people do randomly phone me as well, just so you know, so I do try to return some of those phone calls. My voicemail box does fill up sometimes, but I had a great call this week. An older gentleman called me. He might not appreciate that, but he did call himself that, and left just his name, and I was able to call him back, and it turns out he knew my mom way back and knew my granddad, so it kind of made my week this week. So, and then I did do a pool announcement this week. I had added my platform when I originally dropped my platform back early October. And it's an example of how we need to do city planning. And I provided more details on it this week simply because I wanted to show that, I'm not just talking about popping up bubbles in buildings places, but trying to come up with, how you would initiate that plan, some thoughts about funding. And just what I'm hoping it will be, because I think the city of Regina deserves one after so long. Some of the questions I've received, and just to give it context, the idea being that I would like an aquatic center that serves both the competitive swimmers and organizations, so that's water polo, synchro, diving, I'm sure there's a few others I'm missing, but the idea that we would serve our competitive community and those organized sports, as well as a passive recreational facility that has a wave pool and maybe water slides, so that on 365 days a year, many of those which are extremely cold in the city of Regina, we have somewhere for our kids to go, somewhere for our seniors to go, somewhere for ourselves to go to enjoy being in a bathing suit when it's minus 40 outside. I think the intention is that community gathering places are important, activities are important, it's really good for health and welfare. And it's a gathering place to enjoy and get together as a community. And I think we need more points of contact as a community. And I understand it's COVID. The idea being it takes at least 4 years to put one of these together. And so, touch wood, we are going to be out of a pandemic and we will be on our way. At the same time, I do believe that governments have a place a role to play during something like a pandemic, where we're looking for stimulate we're looking to stimulate the economy. The feds have signaled that they have funding available for infrastructure projects, and we need to take advantage of that. The cost of borrowing is very low. We can stretch $1 right now, and we need to put people to work. And I think those are all elements which really lend itself to moving this forward. And the first phase is planning and creating a steering committee in the beginning of January. And I think what's important is, and I do believe this, that engagement isn't about ticking the box. Engagement is about having the right people at the table, from the community, from everything from users to city planners, maybe urban planners in the city that are not employed, or architects. Just having people come to the table, citizens come to the table to talk about what they're looking for, and I think we're going to get a better product as a result. And I do believe it's important that it's designed with the idea of adding on. And hey, if the federal government has more money, we'll go to that multi-rec facility, because indoor courts, climbing walls, tennis courts, those things are also important. Again, we're cold a lot. We need to embrace the fact and plan for the fact that we're going to be indoors, and we should be enjoying indoors. I also believe we're a winter city, and we should probably have a winter festival. I think that too. And we got probably extremely intelligent people and motivated people to make that happen in our city. Okay, so the questions about the Aquatic Center that we've received so far. Will it replace the Lawson? That is the intention, to replace the Lawson facility. We would like that those competitive pools, those tanks, for diving, for water polo, synchro, the swim clubs, the swim athletes, and then we would like to have a rec portion of it as well. And yes, a hot tub. I think that's important as well. How will you fund the new aquatic center? So the funding model is, and we did shoot kind of high with intention. We've seen some of the other numbers, or I've seen some of the other numbers for recently constructed facilities over the last 5 years. And we went a little bit high only because if the dollars are there, we just want to make sure that we're coming in within budget. And the idea being 30% would come from the federal government, 30% would come from the provincial government, 30% from the city, and then 10% from private. And that private element of it is not for private ownership, but rather it's either fundraising or naming rights, that kind of idea. We've seen it work before. It works in other communities, so we think it's a good use of a facility to allow for naming rights. And we know the federal government has funds available, both for infrastructure as well as health and wellness initiatives, so we think this is one. We also think it serves an element of our community which may not have access to these type of programs otherwise, and we're going to serve some community needs there, which is, again, that's the whole point. Why not a multi-sport facility or tennis center? And I think that would be the intention, depending upon the design and depending upon the final request of the aquatics piece. But the building should still be designed to be able to add on to. So you design into 4 years, and depending upon the economy and the other projects at the city, you'd be planning to do the addition again for those indoor courts. I think they're important as well. How or will you make this pool accessible for people with disabilities and ensure it's up to the proper accessibility standard? I think this is a great question. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but I had the opportunity to talk to Sarah Turnbull today about accessibility in the city and the rec facilities, just as well as accessibility and standards as it relates to municipal affairs in general. It was, I continued to learn. She was great. She's incredibly knowledgeable. It was a great conversation. We're very grateful for it. The answer is yes. She brought to mind that the city did win an award, the Rick Hansen organization, for accessibility in the stadium. In terms of, it's a national award. I think that's a good standard to live up to when we're building new rec facilities. And I would see an aquatic center, that should be the goal, absolutely. And in terms of a steering committee, that should have representation at the steering committee as well, so make sure that it's top of mind. What's come to my attention is that building codes have a general sense of achieving accessibility. I'm gonna work with that word, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's completely user friendly. And if during construction we can do more to make it more favorable and accessible for any individual with disabilities, then that's what we should do. I think it's a good and it's the right goal. Public recreational spaces and quality programs contribute to positive health outcomes. How will you ensure these opportunities are accessible to older adults of all income levels and abilities in Regina? I actually see that an aquatic center is one of those recreational facilities which is entire life friendly. If this is about cost, I think that we should be tiering the cost to ensure that seniors on fixed income have complete access to the new aquatic center. I'll go back to the accessibility standards being let's overachieve on those, and in terms of a steering committee, make sure we have representation from seniors on that committee. Also, to the older adult population who does not use the internet, having a hard copy guide instead of having to go online. That's a really good point. I am wondering about so I think the question is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to clarify this. I think the question is in terms of your activity guide that's provided only goes online right now. I think what you're looking for is an actual paper guide to look at that. And if it's about my proposal, you're welcome to. My number's on Elections Regina. Give me a shout. We'll get you a copy of what we're talking about. Questions from the community that have been asked throughout the past few weeks. The question is, just wondering if you could expand a bit on your plans to help those with addictions and mental health issues. Besides building on Fougere's plan to end homelessness, what other plans do you have for harm reduction in our city to make sure that those with addictions and mental health issues get the help they need? What is your plan for mental health needs in Regina, building care facilities, and a much needed influx of care professionals? So the second part of that question is very much related to Sask Health. An influx of care professionals. I think what I'm going to tie that back into is my idea or my sense that the city needs to collaborate with the community organizations who are delivering the programs to those with addictions and mental health issues. That's really key. There are hundreds of organizations and at least dozens that are dealing with a lot of the issues that are happening right now, and they have expertise and firsthand knowledge about what works and what doesn't work. We have examples and data from across the country and even the world in terms of addictions and mental health issues for models that could potentially be applied here. I think you take the best of those. You take the community organizations, you take as much data and lessons learned from other organizations, other cities, and you start to create a program which we could hopefully pilot here to deal with some of those things. I don't believe in building on Fougere's plan to end homelessness. I'm not sure that plan is at all effective or has been effective. I think homelessness falls under the poverty umbrella, just as a lot of these other issues do. I think my main concern about the addictions and mental health issues are the underlying trauma. Trauma usually is what drives a lot of addiction, and trauma comes from multiple sources, potentially maybe one, but yeah. And mental health issues, sometimes it's a similar underlying issue, which is trauma. We have a world-class trauma research center at the University of Regina. I don't know how many people know that because we don't seem to have anyone championing our city and talking about all the incredible things that are going on here. But to me, to partner with university research, with lessons learned, with community organizations, and employing the resources of city workers working in our community support program, I think that's how you develop the best ideas. I am not a healthcare professional. I am not going to pretend that I have the answers to this. I just know that there's a driving will to attempt to deal with this. We have a serious meth addiction in our city. We have an incredible OD problem that is at a crisis level, and a lot of the issues underlying this is related to trauma. So one, we need the model that builds trust with individuals so that they can open up, and then we can start to deal with some of those underlying issues. I think I've been asked before, and I'll just address it. I think when we talk about mental health issues in terms of harm reduction, I've been asked about safe injection sites. This is something that, again, there are lessons and data learned across the country, and I think the police would need to be involved in terms of bringing that, but I think it's a human service